Tomorrow's the 1st of May, though you wouldn't think so. This is early summer and it's around 16 degrees C. Certainly not been particularly sunny so far. Spring was cold as well and winter had some very severe cold snaps. I'm going to do specific videos on how the individual species are getting on. Just wanted to do a general update on how things in general have fared. Almost all of the Paulownia are now putting out new growth. Even these tiny wee plugs that I planted. There's none on that one, there's plenty on that one. So 3 out of the 6, 50% of them are putting out new growth. There was a particularly strong and unseasonal wind about 2 weeks ago, and some of these did seem to get a touch of wind burn, though as you can see some of them are bursting into life. I'm definitely becoming more curious, excited to find out how well these Paulownia are going to do this year now they've got their roots in the ground. It's been a very mixed picture for what I term the ash type eucalypts. There was that particularly severe cold snap just before Christmas 2022, and these obliqua really didn't enjoy that. They're all dead. The regnans, however, most of them are dead, but this one is putting out new growth, which is astonishing. I don't think it'll be a strong tree. I think it's too far gone for that. So I'm encouraged and I'm going to plant more regnans. That's 100% certain. Fastigata, again, a mixed picture. Most of them are dead. 4 out of the 6. Though I think, difficult to say, I think actually this Thuga palata, Western red cedar, perhaps has got something going on in the roots or the chemicals it's giving off. Certainly this one nearest to it, I replaced that one last year. The one before went copper coloured and died. And this one looks as though it's just going to do the same thing. And this gives you more of an idea of the colour scheme. Very coppery. Not sure if this one's going to make it. It does look as though it's got reasonable new growth coming, so fingers crossed. And again, like regnans, I'm going to plant more fastigata. I don't think I'm going to bother with the obliqua. I think they're just -7 didn't suit them at all. Fingers crossed we don't get anything like that again. Wasn't so much the coldness as the length of time it was cold and lots of freezing fog. And none of which affected these subcrenulata, alpine yellow gum, and these took a real battering the winter after I planted them. I did have some windproof netting and stakes around them. The wind blew that away, and yet the subcrenulata are dead straight. So very, very pleased with them. Definitely going to plant more of them. I'd say as well, in terms of my experience for hedging and shelter, subcrenulata have retained their lower foliage branches much more than gunnii, glossines, ernigera that I've also tried in terms of hedging. So very much subcrenulata high up on the list of fabulous for screening, fabulous for shelter, very resilient to climatic conditions, and beautiful as well. Look at that, a couple of bees enjoying basking in the sun. No surprise that the Robusta and Botryades didn't make it. hardy to -3 apparently in terms of Robusta, -5 perhaps for the Botrytis. I will have one more go with them, but I think, as with the Obliqua, need to be lucky with the weather. The Perenniana spinning gum, they've been fabulous. They didn't bat an eye either in terms of the cold weather. Very, very healthy, putting out good new growth already, starting to form adult foliage, and they're beautiful. That one's got a cabbage spider eating the psyllid by the looks of it. But yeah, beautiful colour scheme, very healthy, and as you can see there, good new adult foliage. What was that someone said about eucalyptus sucking up all the moisture and the nutrients and nothing grows beneath them? Tell that to the knee-deep docks and creeping buttercup. Looks like I've lost one of these camphora, though the rest of them are fine. And like I say, we did have that cold, strong wind about 2-3 weeks ago, and these definitely got a wee touch of windburn. But as you can see, very healthy, good new growth on most of these. Might lose 2 by the looks of it. This one doesn't look in great shape, not putting out new growth anyway. I might lose 2 or 3. Oh no, new growth there. So the ones that aren't in great shape are never going to be brilliant trees. But really, 1, 2, 3 out of 15, happy enough with that. These globulus were very healthy before that cold snap. They were thriving, and now, as you can see, totally dead. I will have another go with globulus, fabulous firewood, which is still high on my list of priorities for this project. Can be coppiced, unlike nitens, grow very quickly, so I will have another go. Again, weather dependent, fingers crossed we don't get any more severe winters. These Rodwai are, for the most part, putting out new growth. I'm definitely going to be persevering with Rodwai, considering the torture that they've been put through on this bank, from strong gales, full blast of the cold snap. They're shaded out from much of the winter sun. They've just been remarkable. I will need to get down here and do the vegetation control. That's vitally important. These aren't huge in terms of they've been in the ground for a year or so. Another factor in their torturous life so far is they're a swamp gum, and this is particularly well drained. Even now, firstly, when I planted them, that used to be a bog regularly, a big puddle. Now it's practically dry. So not only have they had the winds, the cold, they've also had the drought to put up with, and they're still alive, still going. Rodwai, grown commercially for firewood, often also planted as shade and shelter for livestock. As you can see, good new growth on these. There's another cabbage spider. I love seeing them. Some aren't great, but others are doing really well. And like I say, considering their torturous journey to get here, that's remarkable. Definitely putting out good growth. Fingers crossed we get some decent warm summer weather now. This one definitely thriving, probably a bit more sheltered. Lots of cabbage spiders. There's another one in there by the looks of it. While I'm passing, this is a nitens that I planted just before the cold snap, and I mean just before the cold snap, maybe 4 weeks prior to it maximum, and it's really healthy. Not all of them fared that well, though, just stressing the point, that one's very healthy, and I planted it just before that blast of severe cold weather. And here's another that I planted at the same time, and it's even healthier, doing very well. Really pleased. Generally, the nitens have done well. Eucalypts don't like having their roots disturbed, and this one was a storm bara blowdown. Initially it started putting out some new growth, but that's all died now. So I'll just chop that one and plant some more. There are some brown leaves on the nitens, though generally these have done really well. Really pleased with all of them. Just going to give you a close-up of one of them. This one, and just look at that. Just how well it's clawed itself into the ground. Not much wonder they can stand up to storm bara. This one's definitely sturdy. I don't envisage that one blowing down. This is a sheltered area. As you can see, I don't have any stock at the moment. I'm growing them rapidly. Another couple of months maybe and I'll have fresh, good stock this year and ongoing. Now I'm really well set up. Anyway, mixed picture here for the most part. Glossines, Ernigera, Parvula, just fabulous. These Pulverulenta, mixed picture with some very damaged foliage, and yet top of them, I think this is definitely a case of they got the light and the warmth out of the sun, which helped thaw out the top foliage, and that's healthy. So pretty confident they're all going to come back. Though yeah, disappointed to have lost out on all those flowers that I got last February, which the bees just loved. Touching on what I was saying there about the subcrenuata, Glossines, Ernigera, even Parvula to a large extent haven't really retained their lower branches and lower foliage. I did trim these for the first couple of years. I'm just going to let them do their own thing now. Hopefully I'll end up with a wall of wood which will suck up all the moisture and nutrients and negate any requirement for taking care of the creeping buttercups and the docks. I suspect there's quite a lot of people wishing they hadn't invested in Cinerea. It's certainly, these weren't fabulously strong, healthy plants when they were planted, but they were coming back. They were doing well, and that cold snap just wiped them out completely. So I'll clear this area and plant something else, probably snow gums, I'd say, which for the most part are doing really well, and I love the foliage on the snow gums. Just gorgeous, and just fabulous new growth on all of these. Really pleased. Some are better than others. I guess those get a bit more shaded than these. Look at this one though, flourishing. Slightly different coloration on this one, more greeny than bluey, but fabulous, healthy new growth. Those are Passiflora, subspecies Passiflora. This is Passiflora, subspecies Coccifera. And not all of these have made it. So that one's dead. That one's had a wee bit of damage, surprising for a snow gum. And this one, I doubt if it was particularly healthy when it went in. Anyway, 3 that are doing well enough, 2 that are doing very well. And I love this white powdery coating on the bark. It really sets them off nicely. Archiri, what I would consider to be a gunnii substitute, and my feeling is gunnii seeds are going to become increasingly difficult to get. So I definitely, if you're a garden centre changing over, looking for a different species, then these just no issues at all whatsoever with any of the cold. In fact, they looked particularly healthy straight afterwards, and they're putting out beautiful new growth. Fantastic. The same can't be said for Ovata. These are all dead. I'd be astonished if these came back. Certainly, I don't think these will come back. I don't think they'll come out with any new shoots from a root bulb. I think these are dead. These were very popular again last year before wake up call with the cold snap. I will persevere with ovata. I'll plant a few more. They grow so fast, so even if you got 5 years of not severe winters, then you would be harvesting these, and they do coppice. So as I say, I'll definitely be planting more of them. I might plant them further down where it's wetter, but yeah, they didn't enjoy -7. Going to touch a wee bit more on eucalyptus not liking their roots disturbed, and there is a caveat to that, but generally that does seem to be true. There were 2 gunnii here, one of them died off completely. It was early on in the year when I cut these, so maybe that's a factor, but their roots were definitely exposed. This one is coming back, though it's not been particularly vigorous. That's almost 1 year's growth. In fact, it is a year's growth. So looking for a metre plus really, and that's 50 centimetres. So, and that was a new one I planted though, so maybe it's just a spot now. Maybe the rest of this part of my plantation is sucking up all the moisture, and that's why they're not doing as well. Anyways, quite a lot of these viminalis have got the flu, as they say in Ireland. Some of them are healthy enough, but definitely some of them weren't well planted. Quite a few of them blew over with storm barra last year, and I'll give you some close-ups of that now. These ones were blown over by storm barra. I did chop them, they were coming back. It was a very severe cold snap, so they're dead anyway. This one seems to be mixed picture on that one. Some very browned off and dead foliage, but also some very fresh, good, healthy new growth. It's not sturdy. I'm not even going to wobble it too much. It's definitely not sturdy. This one I think is 2 separate trees. Pretty convinced it is. And one reason to be in favour of biodiversity and not clones, because one of these is very healthy, doing well, and yet the one next door to it is dead. And the reason why I'm saying this is probably 2 trees is because I read early on in my research that eucalyptus don't like having their roots disturbed. So when I was planting these, taking them out of the seed trays into, at the time it would have been small pots, if there was a clump of 2 or 3 of them with their leaves, with their roots entwined, I just left it at that and planted as is. So I'm pretty sure that's 2 trees. Those 2 are dead. This one's dead. This one was doing particularly well, coming back strongly, and yet, as you can see, totally wiped out now. I'll have a few bags of firewood out of this lot, definitely. Even some of these on this side, some of them haven't fared well. So just quickly at this, my best viminalis. It's still my best viminalis by a long way, and it's starting to get quite chunky now. So I'm really pleased with that one, and it's solid, and it's got fruit, so hopefully we'll get some seeds off this one. Some more Rodwai up here. These haven't fared quite as well, probably just a little bit higher up, but that one looks as though it's getting a bud, but I'm going to plant more of them. I know Rodwai are good for it. For the most part, everything up here has survived, and some of them are really starting to thrive. This will be a gunnii, and it's solid. As with that nitens and my best viminalis, this has really dug itself into the ground. This will be a viminalis. Good fresh growth on it. I know this is a mountain gum, Dalrya ampliana, and it's doing fine. It doesn't get a lot of moisture here. This one, however, again is a Dalrya ampliana, and it's thriving, probably just in a bit deeper soil here, but it's really doing nicely. I did chop it last year, because it was, or the year before, because it was leaning across the route I take the lawnmower. I'm really pleased with it. The Arnigera here that I planted last year, in general, they're doing well. But this bank does have an issue. That's a gunny eye probably that was planted. That might be an Arnigera. No, I think that was a gunny eye that was planted a few years ago, and as you can see, totally dead, as with this one here. This was definitely one of the original batch. And this is a Johnstonii. I meant to touch on a Johnstonii down by the ash type eucalypts, regnans, fastigata, obliqua. Anyways, I had a customer in the Midlands email to say that their Johnstonii were thriving, and you've got 40-metre tall Johnstonii in Wicklow on the east coast, and yet I'm struggling to get them to work here to grow. They don't like something about it, whether the exposure or the soil or whatever, but they don't like it. So much for not liking having their roots disturbed. I think that might be another Dalrya ampliana. Anyway, it got blown over, but it's healthy and it's growing. I left all of these after Storm Barra. I thought, I've seen so many blown over eucalypts that are happy and thriving that I just thought, just leave them. These are gunnii, again, blown over but thriving. Beautiful new fresh growth. This is a Glossines, and I wanted to specifically show you this one because although all the foliage down below got burnt off, it's pretty shaded here. That's south in that direction, so the winter sun, you know, from here down it wouldn't have been getting any during the winter, no sun. Anyways, the bottom growth is totally dead, but the top of it is thriving. I'll give you some close-ups of that. As I say, very good new fresh growth further up, but totally dead further down. As I say, I'm just leaving all of my hedges grow now. If that's the way that they're meant to be, I'm just going to leave them grow on. I am going to plant Muri Nana along the bottom here to give it some more protection for my polytunnels. This section here is still primarily a wind screen, a wind shelter for these polytunnels to stop them being blown in, and it really has worked, and they have been tough and resilient. I'm not going to cut them back anymore. Mixed success with that. I might have been unlucky with the weather again when I did cut them back initially. It was April, and a couple of weeks after cutting them back, when they were just putting out good new fresh growth, we had a strong cold wind. So most of them have survived, although as I say, I'm going to plant Muri Nana below them, and I'll just show you them now. This is Muri Nana, and this one's very healthy. Bottom growth got a bit burnt, but the top growth is fabulous, and it's definitely alive, definitely growing. So I'm going to grow a lot more of these as an understory in hedging. I think perhaps you can cut gunnii and the likes, but maybe further up. So you may be talking a 3-4 metre wind screen with this below, getting up to maybe 2 metres. Beautiful plants though. Really keen on these now. But I'll show you the other one. So this is the other one, and as you can see, totally dead. So different position, much more shelter, much less in the way of winter sun. It's also in a very free draining area. Difficult to say exactly what the reason is, but certainly it doesn't get as much sun, so that freezing fog that we had along with that cold snap which covered everything in a thin layer of ice, this wouldn't have had any chance. It would have been coated in ice for at least 5 days solid. The weather hasn't been particularly warm, and during the next couple of weeks it's not forecast to improve, probably around an average maybe 15 degrees C. I'm looking back to the summers that I've been here so far, and in April you'd be talking averaging at least 18, probably 20 degrees C at this time of year. So this has been cold. Still, I'm hoping for some reasonable growth on the Paulownia. I definitely want to be doing an update on Paulownia in the next week or so. I have some specific things I want to say in terms of Paulownia's suitability as a carbon capture device. Better probably than any other tree species. So I'll be back with that in the next week or so, as I say. Hope that helps. Meantime, good luck.